Welcome to Medical Student Life in Japan, a podcast created by a teacher and a group of medical students at Nara Medical University.
Our members are Yuriko, a third-year medical student, Gento, Taiga, Taika, Koichi, and Misaki, all second-year medical students, Yuka, a second-year nursing student, Suguru and Koshiro, both first medical students, and our teacher, Michael.
We are a small medical college in the Kansai region of Japan. This podcast has two great purposes.
One is to share stories about being a medical student here in Japan.
And also for our students to share fun ideas, opinions, and information about Japanese culture to people all over the world.
Thanks a
Thanks
lot
a lot for listening.
Welcome to another episode of Medical Student Life in Japan. First of all, thanks to all of our listeners out there across the world for tuning in and listening to our episodes. We really appreciate it. On top of that, please feel free to share this podcast with your friends, subscribe, and even better, we would love to hear from you. So if you have any comments or feedback, if you're listening through Anchor, you can leave us a voice message. On any other platform, we have our email address in the podcast information, so please send us an email. And the students always get really motivated when we hear from our listeners. In today's episode, we have a very special guest. In fact, as the teacher of the students, I have been here at Nara Medical University for about 6 years. And luckily, I had one of my former students come in. He is now a doctor. He graduated in the spring, and he's now been a doctor for several months. He came back to visit us at the university, and I said, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And he said, sure, no problem. So he came in. We had a great chat. We caught up about what he's up to now and also talked about his life when he was a student. So I hope you enjoy it. I think it'll be really fun to hear what it's like to not only be a medical student, but the process to become a doctor here in Japan. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and thanks again for listening. Okay, we have a very special guest in today's episode of Medical Student Life in Japan. In fact, one of my all-time favorite students. And in fact, I've been teaching here for 6 years, and he was one of my very first. He was in one of my first classes, and that class was set up for students going overseas. And so he was a great student and quite good at English as well. And so I'm really lucky to have him here today. Shoichiro, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. It's honorable to be introduced. Hi, everyone. I'm Sho. Please call me Sho. I'm Shoichiro, but please call me Sho.
That's right.
I'm a first-year intern in a hospital in Nara Prefecture, graduating from Nara Medical University, where Mike taught us English.
That's great. Yep, Sho, that's right. So Sho had studied here for 6 years and graduated in the spring, and now he's been an intern at a hospital also in Nara since April.
Yes,
so
that's right.
Just over 6 months, I guess.
Yes.
So first, I have a few questions, and maybe we can talk about, because it's medical student life in Japan, we can talk about your time at Nara Medical University a little bit, kind of reminisce and catch up. And then maybe just a few questions about the transition to becoming a doctor.
Come on, I'm ready to answer all the questions. Come on.
All right, Dr. Sho.
Yeah.
So over those 6 years at Nara Medical student, what kind of classes were the most interesting to you?
The most interesting classes are actually I was interested in many types of classes in Nara Medical University, but the most interesting classes was immunology class. Actually, immunology is a part of medicine that describes how cells, especially immune cells, are working together against enemies like germs or viruses.
Oh,
So they explain detail in their class.
hmm.
So it was so amazing to know how these cells combat enemies.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I think that tends to be one of the popular classes for future doctors.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, you were in some English classes as well, and you always did very well in those. I have fond memories of you and your classmates in our elective class, which was to prepare for your research clerkship.
Yeah, I enjoyed a lot.
We had a lot of fun students in that class, and did a lot of silly things.
Yes.
So speaking of that class and then the research clerkship, you joined the research clerkship. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
About that? Wow, that's a tough question because I spent 3 months in Los Angeles for, of course, mainly for research, but on weekend I enjoyed many things in Los Angeles, which was first stay in foreign countries for me. So,
wow.
What in particular do you want to ask me about?
What was your interest in going overseas, or why California, for example?
Okay. I have 2 main aims for going to California. One is because, as I said, I was interested in immunology, and my professor in immunology department introduced his colleagues when he studied abroad in the US. So, and he had a laboratory in Los Angeles. So he introduced me to that professor in Los Angeles. So I went to there. That is one of my aim, to enjoy research and deepen my knowledge.
That's great.
And the second reason is Los Angeles is hot area, right? As you know,
Yeah.
I believe Los Angeles is one of the most wonderful area in the US, because even in winter, I can walk around with just one T-shirt.
Nice.
If we are lucky, right?
If you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah, and so actually, it also means people there are really easy to talk. Yeah, so actually every week I went to the university's cafeteria to talk to many students.
Oh, cool.
To improve my English skills, but surprisingly, almost all of the students eating alone in the cafeteria was so welcome to talk to me.
Oh, that's great.
I was a stranger. Yeah, so I was so confident after that staying.
Yeah, I kind of remember when you came back, and you also had a nice facial hair, if I remember correctly.
So well. Actually, that was not so popular among these university students.
Yeah, I remember that
especially
too.
girls. But I myself loved that beard. Yeah, actually, I keep that to make me more like adult.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, because you have that nice, cute baby face.
So I have a baby face. So yeah,
that's great. Yeah, Los Angeles. I've been there a few times. My grandfather lived close to Los Angeles, and it's a great place. Warm weather climate. There's a very friendly atmosphere to California.
Yes,
Probably the weather is very helpful to that. What kind of things did you do besides research while you were there? So did you go sightseeing, or did you visit any other parts of America?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I have to say I did these things for sightseeing on weekends, not on weekdays.
Of course, you're very busy doing research.
And actually, I had one Chinese roommate in my shared house.
Cool.
He took me to many places in Los Angeles. One of them was Universal Studio in Hollywood.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's so famous, and it's located in far vaster land compared to Japanese counterpart, and
which we have here near Nara in Osaka.
Yeah. Actually, I had not been to Universal Studio in Japan for more than 10 years, but I was so surprised at that dynamic park.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, that was wonderful.
So you made some friends while you were there
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
the
yeah,
research.
of course.
Do you keep in touch still after?
Yeah,
A few years?
I'm keeping in touch some of them, but I don't know about that Chinese roommate. I can't get in touch for some reason.
Oh, that's too
I don't
bad.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very bad.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
in the future.
yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. So then you did the research clerkship for 3 months in your second year.
Yeah.
And then you came back to Nara Medical, and then you still had your 4 years. Besides that, what other kind of extracurricular activities did you do at NMU? For example, were you in any clubs or did you join any laboratories to do research or anything like that?
Yeah, these questions, I believe these questions are really helpful for my juniors. I belong to golf club and ESS club. We call English Speaking Society. It was up on my tongue.
Yeah.
Speaking Society.
That's
yeah.
right. Oh.
These two clubs are my clubs in school days. Yeah. Actually, these two clubs are not so strict to keep us for a long time. But I enjoyed a lot many activities in these two clubs. And other than that, I continued my research from what I did in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I'm still doing some experiments and writing papers in immunology laboratory to make what I did showing all over the world.
That's
because,
great.
Yeah, that can contribute to the not only Japan, all over the world medicine, right?
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
Cool. And then, so you did some of that in the laboratory here at Nara Medical University,
Yes.
maybe in your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, even 6 years. Yeah. Okay. And then in the previous episodes, as our audience knows, we often talk to students from the first and second year, and then one third year student. We've rarely had a chance to interview an older student or someone already graduated. So I guess the next question would be, how about that 6th year? What happens in the 6th year of medical school?
What happens? Actually, in Nara Medical University, the former part of 6th year is allocated to our advanced clinical practice in a couple of departments, which we choose among 20 or more than 20 departments, right? So in these advanced clinical practices, we can spend 1 or 2 months. It's a very long time for clinical practice in each student's favorite department.
Can I ask which ones you joined?
Sorry, it takes a bit time to
explain in English. Probably it's a little complicated. I'm sure.
Yeah. Actually, I was planning to go to like some hospitals in Shizuoka Prefecture for 3 months to get an education that's pretending to be that of in the US. Right? That hospital is preparing for that, but due to COVID-19, that plan was cancelled. So instead, I spent some 2 months in respiratory medicine department, but unfortunately, most of the classes were online. So, yeah, so that's why it's a bit difficult to explain because
I understand. Yeah, you're not actually there in the hospital. Yeah. Well, that's a good point because your 6th year, your graduating year, was kind of the Corona pandemic year.
Yeah.
So maybe it was kind of sad to have that as your last year, you know. That's the exciting time to actually finish up and then with all your friends graduate together and celebrate. That's too bad. But anyways, you did graduate, so that's fantastic. And then after you graduated, what happens? Just for our listeners, what would happen after you graduate from medical college in Nara?
after graduation, what means after you mean after graduation ceremony or after?
Yeah, either's fine. Of course, how do you celebrate? Maybe one, people will be curious, and then secondly, what's like the next step? So like, how do you transition into a hospital, for example?
Great. To answer the first question, the graduate students normally celebrate ourselves, of course, in the day of graduation ceremony,
Right.
drinking with our club mates, right?
Right.
In sports club mates.
Mm.
And most of them enjoy their graduation trip. Overseas, not normally overseas.
That's right.
But this year it was a bit difficult time for doing these things. So I canceled my graduation trip in Japan, but many of them canceled, I hope, to prevent the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
But so normally the students can celebrate greatly after the graduation.
Yeah, I mean, so you spend 6 years of a very stressful and difficult education, right? I mean, it's hard work to be a medical student, and then typically after you graduate, you and some friends go and take a trip somewhere to kind of celebrate, and oftentimes that might be an overseas trip. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, that all got canceled, and so maybe it would be possible to go within Japan, but because this is still kind of the middle part of the pandemic,
so
it's hard to go anywhere. So so I can imagine that's
canceled.
That's too bad. Well, hopefully once things calm down, maybe a group of you can take a trip.
I hope so. I hope my hospital give me special holidays for canceling.
That would be nice.
I don't know.
And so that's how you kind of celebrate just after. And then maybe the last part would be, what happens next? How do you decide your hospital, or how do you transition into the hospital?
Question. It was a bit strange to me, but in the world of medicine in Japan, people decide their hospital where they work as an intern before the graduation, right, in summer. So after 6 months of advanced clinical practice, we have to take each hospital's interview where we pick up as a candidate. So people decided their hospitals in the future at that time. So, and after graduation, we enjoyed our party or trip normally, but this year was not. But and after that, suddenly we were released into Japanese hospital as an intern.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Okay. And so, as you mentioned earlier, maybe you're an intern at a hospital in Nara. What has this experience been like to now become, I mean, you're a doctor now. Was it scary? Was it hard? Is it stressful? Is it exciting? Can you just give a brief summary of the feeling of the experience?
I hope every medical student, every medical interns in Japan felt that the first night shift was scary.
What's that like? So you start at what time?
Started what time means?
Like what time at night do you?
In my hospital, it starts at 15 a.m.
PM, 5:15 p.m. Okay, and then you go all night until the next.
All night until the next 8:45.
Wow, 8:45 a.m. Okay. So
it was so scary because just we don't know how to do something.
Right.
We don't know even how to write a medical record or prepare a catheter or any other thing. So at first I was so scared to work in night shift.
Right. And then even the atmosphere maybe of the hospital, it's a little dark and it's night. And so, yeah, that's interesting. I was in a hospital before as a patient,
Yeah.
and I spent a week in the hospital. And I remember at nighttime, it was a kind of a strange.
Yeah.
I went for like a walk outside my room, and it was a kind of a strange vibe. So I can imagine.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
And now you've been there for over 6 months.
Yes, over 6
So you're
months.
starting to get the hang of it, get comfortable.
Yeah. So yeah, I can do basic things for basic and necessary things for complete the tasks in night shift. So actually, today is after the night shift.
That's right. Yeah, we talked a little bit
yeah,
before the recording.
Yeah.
Show is actually joining us after being at the hospital all night. This is how impressive Show is.
Don't worry.
Yeah. And so how many night shifts do you normally do in a week?
Yeah, in our hospital, it depends on the number. It depends on the number of interns in the hospital. But
Okay.
normally, we do night shift 5 or 6 times per month.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. But even then, that sounds hard.
Yeah.
Hard to get used to, right?
Hard,
Yeah.
actually.
You must be sleepy.
Yeah, but no problem.
Yeah.
Because
there
it's
you go.
honorable to be invited.
Of
here.
course. Great. Well, I think that's pretty much all the questions for today. We got a lot of good information from Show. Show, thanks for joining us and sharing all your knowledge about medical college and then transitioning. So I'm sure our audience, of course, even in Japan, but overseas, will be curious to hear about some of those topics. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm always ready to help my juniors.
Yeah, and it's been
welcome.
good to see you again.
Yeah,
it's been a little while, maybe since early spring. So
yeah.
again, Show is always one of my favorite students. So
Thank you.
in fact, I would consider Show a friend more than a student now. So in fact, he even helped me build the desk in my office. That's how nice Show is.
That was a great memory for me. Yeah.
Anyways, Show, thanks for joining us, and let's keep in touch, and maybe you can join us again down the road.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye.